Hi, I'm Cailey, a librarian here at Mentor Public Library.
And I'm Meg, also a librarian, and welcome to this week's edition of All Booked Up with Cailey and Meg, where each week we give you different book recommendations on a specific theme. This week, we are looking at teen books with superpowers, both the good and bad of heroes and villains and their extraordinary abilities.
Ooh. Yes, and all of the books that we're going to talk about today are available here at the library or online for free with your library card through Hoopla and Libby by Overdrive. So, Meg, what is your first super book?
My first super book is the first in a trilogy. It's by Marissa Meyer and it's called Renegades. It's a fast-paced superhero thriller that combines X-Men with Romeo and Juliet.
That's an interesting take.
Interesting combo, yeah. So the title, Renegades, refers to a coalition of humans called prodigies. These are a group with extraordinary abilities that emerged from the ruins of a crumbled society, and they pretty much saved the world. So everyone loves the Renegades. They're the symbol of hope and justice. But there's one group that absolutely hates them, and that's the anarchists. They're the villains that were overthrown, and they're the ones like wrecking up the world, but man, they do not like the Renegades. Well, of course, this is where our two main characters come from each group. So there's Nova, and Nova is from the anarchists. And in addition to just this general dislike of the Renegades, she has a very personal reason for wanting vengeance against them. So she has a very personal desire to see them like totally destroyed. Then there's Adrian. He's a justice-loving renegade, but he also has this mysterious draw towards Nova. So they begin to interact more, and as they interact, their previously held assumptions are a little bit challenged, and then they have to deal with this pull that they both start to experience towards each other, which puts them both at risk from a very bad anarchist. So I like it because it explores, good versus evil, the ultimate benefit of superheroes, and also, how you feel when you feel this attraction to someone very different from yourself who feels really different about life. So I think that's an interesting mix. And if you want to binge a series on superheroes, this may be one you want to start with.
Yeah, that sounds really cool. I've heard of that, but have not read it myself. So it's a good one. My first one kind of sounds a little similar to yours in that my first book is Steelheart by Brandon Sanderson. Okay. And this one is a little bit older. It came out in 2013, but like you said, it's a complete trilogy. So if someone's looking to, jump in and do a binge read of a trilogy, this is a good one.
Great.
And I know it's a little older, but when you first brought up the idea of like superheroes or superpowers, this was the first book that came to mind for me.
Right.
So 10 years back, a burst in the sky, a weird astrological event called the Calamity, caused a lot of normal people to start having superpowers. And they became the epics. That's what they're called, the epics. But with great power comes great ego. And all of the epics pretty much became evil. They all let the power go to their heads. And basically consumed by their new abilities, they have basically taken over the United States, which have now become the fractured states and just sort of a shadow of what they once were. Different places are ruled over by certain powerful epics. And our main character, David, has a particular axe to grind with the epics because years back he witnessed the murder of his father by one of the epics called Steelheart. And Steelheart is one of the most powerful epics. Now that David is 18, he is ready to sort of exact his revenge. And he teams up with this group called the Reckoners, who are like an anti-epic team that their mission is to like find the weaknesses and take them down. And each epic has a different weakness, but it can be anything. And so finding out what their weakness can be really dangerous just in itself. And the Reckoners are not super on board with David's plan to take down Steelheart because Steelheart is one of the most powerful epics. And they have a really hard time trying to figure out what his weakness is. But David, as a child, saw Steelheart bleed, so he knows that there's a weakness there.
Wow.
And David's determined to avenge his father and take down the evil epics, in Steelheart, of course, being the main one. And so this is sort of like an action-packed, kind of like little guy going up against a supervillain story. And what I think is really interesting is it's not necessarily like superheroes and supervillains. It's very much like these supervillains and like regular people teaming up to try to take them down. And it like flips that whole superpower theme. Like, you know, you'd like to think that anyone who would get superpowers would only use them for good, but not really. And as I said, it is part of a trilogy, and this is the first book, so can jump right in.
Yeah, that sounds great, Cailey. And yeah, it's showing, I like how you pointed out, like it shows maybe power isn't that, you know, superpowers sounds really great.
Exactly.
But it's very dangerous maybe. So yeah, that's good. And my next book also kind of looks at maybe some of the downsides of those powers. It's called Zeros by Scott Westerfeld and co-authored by Margot Lanigan and Deborah Biancotti. So, and I think there are one or two books after this, but this beginning one is combines superhero type action with more like heartrending introspection, exploring how people with superpowers suffer alienation, suffering, and really need that community to, like you said, avoid maybe all becoming supervillains. So our book follows 6 Californian teens, collectively called the Zeros. Their unique powers often put them in harm's way, and really the only way they can get out of their trouble is to rely on the other 5. The problem is the Zeros aren't exactly on the best terms right now. There was a falling out from the previous summer and during one of their missions. So now they're all far apart, and they're all kind of suffering through their powers. They're struggling for real. So for example, Ethan is one of them. His AKA Scam is his name. And he has a voice inside his head that says whatever the other person wants to hear, whether it's true or not. And that can get him in a lot of trouble. Like during a bank robbery, he'll blurt out something that implicates him. So even though he had nothing to do with it. So he can get in a lot of trouble. Then there's Anonymous. And this is a character who literally lives in obscurity, which is not too helpful when you're in a hospital and you need help in a hospital. So when no one even like notices you ever. And then there's the mysterious Kelsey, who can control crowd emotions. And you can see how that could go bad. I mean, not even have to say.
That could go good or bad.
That could go good or bad. So they're really unique because it's not like the typical superpowers. They actually sound more like, not like curse, like almost like horrible things to befall you. So these are really interesting powers. And of course, a danger becomes for one of them that reunites them begrudgingly. And the main tension is, are these teens going to be able to turn their powers for good? Are they going to be able to harness them in a way that they can use them positively? So I think that's a unique spin on superheroes. And, you know, I like it. As Scott Westerfeld wrote Ugly. So if you like that more science fiction, you look at it as well, you may be interested in this one.
That sounds awesome. So my next book is called Faith Taking Flight by Julie Murphy. And Julie Murphy is the author of Dumplin', which I think we talked about on here once. And this author gives us an origin story for sort of non-traditional superhero. The summer before her senior year is a big year for Faith. And she is a relatively normal teenager. She's got a couple of BFFs. She has this obsession with this teen drama TV show called The Grove, and she describes herself as a sort of plus size goddess. And at the end of summer, she learns to fly.
Wow. Okay.
No big deal. Like, bigger on Faith's radar than flying is that the cast of The Grove is coming into her hometown to be filming. And that's the thing that's really right there. She is a major fangirl for this show and is super excited to find out that the whole cast is going to be in town, including her celebrity crush. And she might even get a chance to meet them, that kind of thing. Another thing sort of happening in the background of this is that Faith works at a local animal shelter, and animals have started to go missing, which she starts to look into to try to find out if something nefarious is happening. There's really a lot that happens in this book. It covers a lot of different plot points, and it can get a little bit disorienting at times. However, it all sort of like comes together in this perfect way at the end. Faith is dealing with some friend drama, some family drama, some love triangles, as well as trying to find out the core of these evil doings. And one thing I really like about this book is that it's a superhero like origin story, but it's really a lot of like a teen contemporary dramatic story that, you know, she just happens to be able to fly. No big deal. And the book starts off really like funny and nerdy and embracing her like nerdy fandom thing. But once things sort of pick up, you see all of these different plot points that like something's happening in this town, and trying to figure out what's going on. And there's mysteries to solve and bad guys to take down. The book is actually inspired by and fits into the universe of the Faith comics from the Valiant comics. And readers can easily be a fan of the comics and jump into this book, or vice versa, read this book and then jump into the comics, which I think is kind of cool because it kind of fits right into that timeline. And gives you a sort of background of how Faith got her powers, which I will warn you, it takes a while to get to the meat of this. You know, you find out she has powers, but it takes a while to find out how she got those.
Oh, interesting, man. I like that. This was really cool. And the animals got me, man. Like, I know superheroes are often saving people, but it's so easy to get emotionally invested once animals are involved. So I'm like, yes, save the animals.
Yes, save the animals.
Save the animals. That was really good, Cailey. Thank you guys for joining us for this week's edition of All Booked Up, Cailey and Meg. We hope you join us next time, 2 weeks from now, and we'll give you some more good book recommendations.
Yes, until then, happy reading.